Hey, thank you all so much for joining another episode of Celeste the Therapist podcast. My name is Celeste, and I'm a therapist in real life. People tend to ask me, are you a real therapist? I am. And I have my regular guest that comes on every month. If you're new to the show, Jermaine will introduce himself to you all. Jermaine.
Hi, yes, I'm Jermaine Morris. I'm a certified coach and consultant, and my practice is based around a DISC assessment. So basically, just kind of help people who are deciding to make changes in their life. The assessment gives them a good starting point and helps them get clarity on how they deal with decision making, communication styles. It just really gives us a clear look at ourselves, and it's a really good starting point to moving forward.
Yeah, and a big part of the whole idea of the um, self-awareness is the without judgment too.
Yes.
And also a lot of for people that are new and have never heard us together, if you go to celestetherapist.com/podcast and you click on a link, you can find a ton of episodes from us. But a lot of the things that we do is just talk about how we are as humans and how we can be conditioned, how things may have affected us in different ways. Because I find in my practice that a lot of times, I think people think that they can't change if they wanted to, right? This is about people, or they're defected, or not realizing the origin or how it happened, or how they're wired. Sometimes we're wired a certain way, and that's okay. I think that people tend to struggle with not being a part of the norm of society. What we think. I mean, who says what norm is? I don't know. Like, who
I don't even
created
know.
the norm? But it is better to create your own norm, right?
Yes.
And yeah, okay. But do you find that people tend to struggle with how they are or who they are, and then when they understand themselves better, there's this like release that comes?
Yeah, especially for
Yeah,
those ones, kind of what you're talking about, the people who have this idea of what they're quote unquote, what they should be like.
yeah.
Like I'm supposed to be this way. Well, really, how
Yeah.
come? Well, that's what everybody on TV acts, or that's
Yeah.
what my parents told me I was supposed to be
Right.
like, or
Yeah.
what I with these internet streets tell me I'm supposed to be like,
Right.
as opposed to something that's genuine and authentic to them.
Yeah. So that's the goal of our show together, is really to just talk about different areas that we struggle, and just ways in which you can work on it, because it takes time. It's
Yeah.
I wish logic can click in, the way we can understand something logically. I wish it was that easy to create change, but it does take time.
Yeah.
Because we can know something logically, but then because we've been doing things a certain way, it takes a lot of intention to change that.
Yeah.
And
Because
a
it's the
lot of
thing is,
people,
you can't think your way out of something you behaved your way
right?
into.
Yeah.
So you
I had a
get
client say she said she spent 4 hours thinking about going to the gym, but she never went.
yeah.
And I said, in them 4 hours, you could have had a nice gym session, and we laughed. And I said, you know what, you can't think about it, you just got to do it.
Yeah.
It's the action piece that we're missing.
Yes.
But speaking of action, one of the things that we do is Jermaine picks a topic and we have a conversation about it. And today we're going to talk about time management, because that's something that people may frame it a certain way about having issues with, but may not understand the underlying reason behind it, right?
Yeah.
But the time management feels more accurate because it's clear,
Yeah.
the timepiece. But then there may be some other things that you may not really be thinking about that Jermaine's going to help you think about today. So tell me what people tell you about their time management struggles that they have.
Yeah. So a lot of times if I'm working with somebody or even just a conversation, speaking with someone, and they always equate time management problems because they're late to things or
Mhm.
because they miss things. So time is kind of it's what shows itself. And so
Right.
I have an issue budgeting my time. Or the most common phrase, I'm a procrastinator.
Yeah, I
I
hear that a lot.
procrastinate. And then as we get to talking, and if it's people I work with, or like I said, or just in conversation, you find out that procrastination is not the issue, that time management is not the problem. that that's just the symptom of something else.
Mm.
And so when we look at why we're always late to things, or we look at why we feel like there's not enough minutes in the day,
Mm-hmm.
more often than not, that what I'll come across with people, like when they think about procrastination, it's not a time management issue. It's more of like a values issue.
Mm.
And
Oh, that's good.
yeah. And so the way that time is spent, it's more so on what we value as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to the minutes of the day.
Because the
So
minutes of the day is always going to be the same.
it's
It's
the
not going
same.
to change. Yeah.
It's the same. And so if you had a day scheduled of a bunch of stuff that you get a day off and you can do anything you want to do, it's a high probability you'll get most of the things done of what you want to do. But if you're given the very next day where you have to go back to what you have to do, then all of a sudden I have a procrastination issue, I have a time management problem, and I can't get to everything. Well, if you're doing things that you don't value or that are not high ranking on your values list, you're going to have difficulty getting to them. It's not the amount of time it takes you to get to point A to point B. The reason why we can procrastinate, like we can delay doing something, is because it's not something we value.
Right.
And
So you're
so,
saying values is one of the things that one of the underlining reasons
yes,
behind. So when you think about this idea for people that might be listening, right? Because there's been times where I talk to people about how their behaviors are and how they treat themselves, and I say, doesn't sound like you really love yourself because of what you've been
yeah,
allowing, and it's hard to hear, right?
yeah,
And when I think about the things that we need to do and the value we tend to put with other people and their needs versus ours, it shows that we don't value ourselves the way that we think we make. Because some people
yeah.
don't even realize they don't put a high value on their happiness or their life the way they should. How would somebody come to like how would somebody be able to work through like what is my value? Because I don't know if people really think about the values that they have and have written them out and they're clear on them.
Yeah, so like an example, so you're talking about somebody working out. Like, man, I
Okay.
know I should work out, but I can't really figure out that I don't have the time. I don't
Right.
have the time. I don't have the time. Till you have that doctor's appointment and they
I
tell
know.
you, if you do not do this,
I know.
you won't be here anymore to worry about time. Then
Right.
miraculously they can come up with an hour a day
Yeah.
to work out.
Yeah.
So you can find that 60 minutes. So for somebody saying, well, how would I be aware if it's a values issue? If we're specifically speaking about our time and our scheduling and stuff, and we can't get to the things that we need to do, looking at what it is that we are doing. Like if
Mhm.
you're always saying, I'm always missing this, I'm always late to that. Okay, if you think of like the phrase time is money, where are you spending your money?
Mm.
Where are you spending your time? What are you doing? And so, oh, I'm just slow, or I'm just this, or I'm just that. You really start auditing our time like we audit our money.
Yeah. That's good.
So one
Eh,
thing, good.
no, no, no. I was saying that's good. The auditing, like, because you may not realize the values, but then looking at where you are spending your time, so you can see, like,
Yeah,
does this really matter? Is this the direction I'm going in life?
yeah.
Does it? Yeah.
One of the things I have people do is that audit your day. So from the time you
Hmm.
wake up to the very best of your ability, where did you spend every minute of your day?
Hmm.
I woke up at 7 a.m. When did you actually get out of bed? About 7:45. I spent 45 minutes scrolling.
Hmm.
Then how long did it take you to do A to B? I spent 30 minutes doing this, an hour doing that. And then you can look back at the day and you're like, I had about 4 hours of doing absolutely nothing productive. Okay. Oh wow. I could have went to the gym. I did have time for that dentist appointment. I could have made that little league practice. I could have been home early for dinner. You see all these things that you could have did. Okay, so why am I not making the things that I'm saying are important to me for things
Yeah.
that I can acknowledge are not?
Yeah.
Okay, so where am I placing value? Where am I placing my time? What is it that I'm doing? And then you can start asking yourself some real questions about, okay, where am I doing these things? I had time during the day. I now know with data and information, I had an extra 3.5 hours that I spent mindlessly scrolling, randomly sitting around, not doing anything. Okay, I'm aware if I had the time. So why didn't I make that thing that I said I wanted to go to? Why didn't I make it there? That makes sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's a good way to start.
Yeah. So we could start saying, okay, not having enough time is not the real answer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Especially again, I'm gonna go back to it probably throughout today's podcast. Is
Yeah.
that time is the same, and it's interesting how like we know that can't change, so we can't like
Yeah.
create more time. So why do we not look at like what we are doing? Like this isn't rocket science,
Yeah.
what you're saying, uh, but I feel like we're not really conditioned to look in the mirror and just kind of look at what we're doing and really make decisions that work for us. Because everything
Yes.
I talk about with people is not, I'm not talking above their head. It's really simple, but again, logic. The think, like you said, you can't think your way into what you need. You have to do it. And I find that the action piece, because it feels hard. And we do a lot of things that feels hard, but when it comes to us and our growth, when
Yeah.
it feels hard, I find people drop the ball a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the looking at, okay, I acknowledge I've been doing this, but I don't know how to change.
Yeah,
Or I've been doing this way because I'm used to doing it.
yeah,
Or whatever. Okay, if we acknowledge that this is what's going on and I behaved my way into this pattern, so I'm now going to have to behave my way out of it. So
that's
I'm
true.
conscious now that I wake up at 7 a.m. and I don't get out of bed till 7:45. I acknowledge that now.
Mm-hmm.
I now have to say, okay, at 7, I need to behave my way out of bed at 7 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
I can't go back and forth debating with myself because I know my pattern, my tendency will be to lie in bed.
yeah.
So when the alarm goes off, when it's 7 o'clock, I have to behave my way off this mattress.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And just by doing the exact same thing I did the day before, I'm now 45 minutes ahead of the game as I was the rest of this week.
Right.
I just
Yeah,
came up with
yeah,
an extra $45 to budget
yeah, yeah.
without
That's
doing anything else. If I don't do
yeah.
anything, if I don't change one other thing during the course of the day, I just came up with 45 minutes. That's the
Yeah.
5 minutes late for work. That's the 10 minutes. That's the 10 minutes I didn't have time to get gas on my way in. That's you know what I mean? Like that, I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
came up
yeah.
with an extra 45 minutes for my day.
And again, the time we have the same amount of time in a day. And speaking of like the whole just behaving your way, and especially when I think about the morning routine,
Yeah.
it's so helpful when you're not rushing into work or rushing into what you have to do, because it honestly sets the tone for the day.
Yeah.
If you can ease your way into your day, and if that means that instant gratification of pressing snooze is not happening, and you take the route of like, you know what, I'm not going to hit snooze, I'm not going to get an extra few minutes, because if you don't do that, then what happens on the other end is that you'll have a different day where you're
Yes.
not setting the tone to rush. So it's when you look at the value of what you want and what you need, a lot of times people will tend to stick to that kind of game plan, because they recognize the benefits. There is beneficial to, like, I mean, it feels good to sleep in, right? Like I know that, right? But it also doesn't feel good to be rushing. It doesn't feel good to not feel like I haven't accomplished everything that I needed to do. So that's something that's important to think about.
Yeah.
Another, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, if you value peace, if you value
Mhm.
less anxiety, less stress, that 45 minutes that you save by getting straight out of bed means now you don't need to make every green light on your way to work. Now you're not cussing out the car ahead of you because they're braking on yellow, and you need to make this light because you've been written up twice already.
Right.
You know
And
what I mean?
blaming
Like
the light and blaming the car.
yeah, you're not running into the job with everything under your arms trying to hurry up because you need to technically make sure you're logged in before the
Right,
minute changes. Like
right,
now you're playing catch up, and now your whole morning is off, which means your day is behind. And that
right.
45 minutes you saved, you're instead chasing all day. You're trying to
Yeah.
make up that 45 minute all day long, trying to cut corners and this and that, whatever. It changes literally the whole dynamic of your day just by
And
that slight change in behavior.
and this goes for my work at home people too. I just
Yeah.
want to say, it's like, if I was rolling out of bed into work, like I wouldn't be okay. So even if you don't have to leave for work, it is helpful to look at the way you're managing time and really, when you said if you want peace, if you want less anxiety, nobody would ever say they don't want it, but I don't think we name it, right? If we
Yeah.
can name where we're aiming when it doesn't feel good to like just jump up out of bed, we can remember why we're doing it. And that's why I think writing things down and making it plain, like especially your those internal goals are important. Like we know we want to make money, we know what the things we want to purchase, right? We don't really have to write those things down because I feel like it's clear. The internal goals, I feel like maybe you do need to write those down and look at them so that you can have that point of reference for when you are struggling with doing the things that you need to do.
Yeah. Very, very, very much so.
The other thing you talked about is people pleasing is one of the things that people tend to tell people about. What you mean by that?
Yeah, so it still falls under your values, is that you
Mm,
value doing something for someone else more than you value taking care of the things that you need to take care of.
yeah,
So, I've got 4 hours worth of things to get done and 4.5 hours to do them. You knew that yesterday. Then someone calls you and needs you to do something that's going to take an hour.
yeah.
So you now know you're now about to be 30 minutes on the wrong side of this time management. But because
Mm-hmm.
of we value doing something for somebody else more than we value taking care of the things we need to do for ourselves, we'll say yes to someone when we know we don't have the efficient time to do it.
Right, right.
And so can you just drop me off at the airport? It's 20 minutes in the opposite direction. I've got this. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And now we're trying to rob Peter to pay Paul in the minutes during the course of the day of trying to, if I cut this, if I don't do that, if I this, and we're behind, and there's not enough minutes to do that.
Yeah.
And so we're falling short on the things that we need to do because of that value we placed on doing something for someone else.
And we're crossing off of the things that we may have put on our list that will help us.
Yeah.
I was definitely that person. And I will say, no is a complete sentence.
Yes.
And if it feels hard to say, I think now what I do is I say yes around my schedule. I don't negotiate my schedule
Yeah.
around people's needs. And know that when you are trying to not be that yes person
Yeah.
anymore, that it will feel hard to do. You will feel like you're letting somebody down. But remember, you've been letting yourself down. I tell people that, and why should somebody else get more of you than you get of yourself?
That's right.
It's just not fair. And some people have been conditioned based off of the way they grew up, the way their culture has been set up, sometimes especially for women, and not just cultural but in this country, right? The way things have been shown, I think there tends to be a tendency to put others before yourself,
Yeah.
and not realizing why you're so drained, why you don't find pleasure in life, why you don't have
Yeah.
joy. And it's looking at, well, what am I doing? And people pleasing, I know, is a struggle that so many people have for so many different reasons. So I do want to say, as you're trying to like cut back on saying yes, that it will feel extremely hard because you're doing something different than you've done in the past.
Yeah, going against the behavior to
Yeah.
try something new. Like I always tell people, say my default answer is no. Like when somebody wants me to do something, like they're just like, "How do you do that?" I said, "Because of years of saying yes to too many of the wrong things."
Yeah, yeah. Now it's easier for me, but it was hard at the
Oh yeah,
beginning.
we just say you almost have to earn it. Yet I say no
Yeah,
first, and then I'll look to see if it can work or not work out. Then I'll get okay. Actually, I think I can work that in, but I
yeah,
start off with
yeah,
no,
yeah.
and because I'm a believer, it was a phrase that you're the master of what you say no to, but the slave to what you say yes to.
Okay.
And so once you say yes, you've committed yourself to this promise, this time, this event, this moment. When you're still in control when you say no.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm keeping everything in front of me and I'll decide what I want to let through the barrier for my time.
Yes. Yeah. And for people that struggle with saying no outright, you can say, if you struggle with saying no, and I try to meet people where they are, I say, tell it, let me look at my schedule, right? You
Yeah.
know, and if you're scheduling yourself in, even if you don't have nowhere to go or be, and you know, like you have a long day and you want to relax, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Sorry, it doesn't fit. You don't have to say sorry, but because you don't have to be sorry for not what you can't do. So I'm mindful of like that word and when the way people utilize it, but really looking for ways to get to that word no is important.
Yeah.
Um, but until you can get there, let me check my schedule, make sure you're penciling yourself in and you really don't have the time because just because you don't have nowhere to go or be during a
Yeah.
certain time doesn't mean you have to like people don't understand their bandwidth. They don't
Yes.
understand how much cup they have left. They're just so used to always being so like overwhelmed that that's the capacity that they function off of.
Yeah.
When that's not the capacity we're supposed to be functioning off of. We're
Yeah.
not supposed to be
I'm supposed to
functioning.
stay in the red.
We stay in the red and we wonder why we have all of these different medical ailments is because our body is not shutting down, right? And
Yeah.
then you're trying to figure out why you can't sleep just because it's nighttime doesn't you got to teach your body how to wind down and shut down, and it can't happen if you're not monitoring the way you're utilizing your time.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah, the same way planes take off and land, you start at 0 and it slowly picks up speed to then it gradually makes adjustments to where it takes off and leaves the ground. The
Hmm.
same way when you're flying, it just doesn't cut the engine and you drop. You
Right.
taper off and you gradually come down. Like
Right.
time-wise, human beings need that too. It's not like
Yeah.
just light switch from
Right.
event to event, time to time. Is giving
Yeah.
ourselves that space. There's a concept that I use with time management, and I refer to it as coffee, not cola. And the reason why is I've had a bunch of jobs when I was younger. And so when I
Hmm.
was younger, I used to work in this fast food place. And whenever people go into fast food and they want drinks, they're like, man, fill this thing up to the top. Like sometimes they would even say, don't even put ice in it. I want to get this thing all the way to the brim so I can get as much soda out of this thing as humanly possible. After I left that job, I used to work in a coffee shop. And so I had the same premise when I was pouring people's coffee. And I had a manager who was like, hey, look, you got to stop doing that. It's like, what? He said, you're filling the coffee to the top. He said a couple of reasons. He said, number one, that's a potential lawsuit. You can't just, somebody's going to get
Okay.
burned. You fill this thing to the top. I said, and also people like to put in like cream and sugar and that stuff in their coffee. So you need to leave room. And so it's the
Ah,
same premise when we do events that it's coffee, not cola. You need to leave room in between
yes.
events as opposed to filling our schedule up to the very brim. Oh, I
Yeah,
finished
yeah.
this at 8. Let me book the next thing at 8:10.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
let me wait till 8:30, maybe even 9, because I need to
Right,
leave
right.
room between these events for things that I may need to add or sprinkle
Mhm,
in or life just might happen. And
mhm.
so for a lot of us, we've got everything to the brim. And
I
all it
know.
takes is somebody not running that light to offset the entire schedule. That one car who decided to brake on yellow, now we're behind because everything needed everything to be perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
And I'll say too for people, just kind of being mindful of the way you are allowing things to happen. If you
yeah,
find yourself when it comes to time, like feeling like you're blaming others or things, just kind of look at what you have control over, what you allow, what you said yes to. Because people say, "Oh, they keep asking me," and I say, "Yeah, but you keep saying yes," and that's simple. Logically, we know that, but it's like, why don't we? We don't really think about it that deeply. We just automatically blame Jermaine for always asking. But Jermaine knows Celeste is always going to say yes. So why wouldn't he ask? When I say that, it's
yeah,
not about Jermaine's not the bad guy because he has been conditioned to me saying yes all the time. And so we don't realize how much we create a system for people in our lives to be a certain way. Because you'll be surprised. Sometimes you adjust. There's some people will like go off because they only know you as a yes person. But
Yeah.
there's some people that's still going to be in your life. It's okay if you can't do it. I'll do it myself. I'll get somebody else to do it. Especially for people that say yes and put a smile on their face and act like everything's fine and they're struggling inside. Like that's
Yeah.
just not fair.
And that's that part of, like, so the value system aspect of it, to where we'll sit there and be like, oh, I have all these things. Like, it's like, no, okay, we're valuing not disappointing
Yeah.
somebody.
Right.
We're valuing a lot of us get that people pleasing road is because we were taught our value is in being there for everybody else.
Right. Especially some cultures too.
Yeah. Our value is linked to helping out and showing up and
Mhm.
being the go-to person. And so that becomes the higher value.
Right.
So, it's okay if I suffer for the things that I didn't get done, but I was able to help my sister with this,
And I want to say that we're not saying like helping. I love helping. I love volunteering. I do a lot of things. So this is not about not doing those things or I'm just too nice. It's like, no, there's nothing wrong with being nice. There's nothing wrong with wanting to help. It just can't be at the expense of your own wellness, right? Like
Yes.
that. And I've found that because people always they say, "Oh, you're so busy," but I really feel like I don't feel like what people see or observe
Yeah.
because of the way I balance it out and the way I pour into me. So I'm not just like I don't feel like I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
I say no to a lot of things and I say yes to me all the time. And I feel like I can pour differently when I've poured into myself. It's hard to pour authentically and just consistently the
Yeah.
way I am. Like my mood doesn't like shift, like it's because of me like doing me first. So this is not to knock helping others um or doing things to help your family friend out, but when it's at the expense of your wellness, then that's a problem.
Yeah, because even so, take the taxing physical toll of saying yes
Yeah.
to too many things. Then you take the just the mental strain of trying to be stressed out, of trying to make everything work and trying to figure out a way to budget your minutes out of the day. And then you take the emotional weight of the resentment, the anger, and the passive aggressive tendencies that are going to come out during that process. These are
Right.
a threefold weight that is being put on us with that yes.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so it's like I'm always exhausted. I'm always tired, but I have a smile on my face because I want to show up for somebody else. Yeah, but the weight and the stress and the pressure is because you're saying yes.
Yeah.
By saying some no's and then putting the schedule in front of us, like
Right.
so we're not behind trying to chase it all the time. Let me get it ahead. Let me put this thing so I
Yeah.
can look at it from a distance and then say, okay, I can dedicate. There's a 4-hour event. I can give you an hour. And we're coming by. Well, can you come by the thing starts at 2? Okay, but can you come by at noon and help us set up and this? And no, I can stop by at 2 and I may be there to about 2:30, maybe 3, but I have something else I need to do. Even if the something else I need to do is just go home and put my feet up.
Right. That's okay.
That's completely okay. And it
Yeah.
does not have to, well, you're just going to go home. Yes. Period.
Yeah.
You know, putting periods where have a history of placing commas.
Yeah.
Just like, I'm just going to go home. Yeah, but you can stay a little. No, I'm going home.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
If I'm going home to watch TV, or if I'm going to go perform, a heart surgery, they're just as important to me because I'm
Yes. Yeah.
placing that value on my time, on my emotional well-being, on my mental stability. And our scheduling is not the event and the time. It's a setup. So if we exhaust ourselves from noon to 4, that affects the rest of the day. And if we
Mm-hmm.
exhaust ourselves on Monday, that affects Tuesday. If we
Mm-hmm.
exhaust ourselves this week, that affects the next week. Exhaust ourselves in January, that affects February. Like
Right.
these are not isolated incidences. So saying that I'm saying no to this on Saturday is because I also want to have a good Sunday.
Right.
And
Right.
a relaxed Sunday leads me into a less stressed Monday.
Yeah.
Which makes me more equipped to deal with the problems that normally show up by Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And then by Friday, I'm not just dragging my feet and exhausted in a horrific state. So then all I do is sleep all day Saturday, and I didn't get to enjoy the first day off I had. Like, I'm saying no to you here because I'm literally saying yes to me. And by saying no to more things, it makes managing our time easier.
It really does. It
Yeah.
really does. Is there anything else on the value under the values list that you can think of that people
Why it
don't
affects their
realize?
time?
Yeah.
Perfectionism.
Oh yeah. They could talk about that.
So it's not that there's not enough time to adequately or efficiently get something done. It's because we attach this, it has to be perfect, quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote, for the people who are just listening, quote unquote, perfect, in order for me to either A, start, because if I can't get it under the most perfect circumstances, I won't even begin unless everything is lined up. Or B, I won't get it done. I won't call it done until it's perfect. Both those things eat up minutes. So if we say, well, I won't start until I have A, B, and C, all my ducks in a row is when I'll begin. Okay, well, you may
Mm-hmm.
lose minutes, hours, days before you start because it's not in the perfect circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
Or you'll start it and begin, and you'll keep revising it 52 times. You'll keep going over it with a fine tooth comb. You'll keep looking until it is absolutely perfect before you put a period at the end. And now you're missing deadlines. Now you're running out of minutes. Now now other things aren't getting done because you're spending an excess amount of time on this particular thing because there's some variation of perfect you believe it's supposed to be.
Wow.
So it's not that there wasn't enough time to get it done. It's just that our association to what we believe perfect is what's keeping us from getting this done in the time that we could get it done.
How do, because there's a lot of people that struggle with that kind of perfectionism, and part of it is a voice that's not theirs from
Yeah.
growing up, right? Part of it is probably society and comparing. But what can people do that where that may be part of the reason why they have struggled with doing certain things? And what would you say to that person that is struggling with some perfectionism?
So if you're on the first half to where you can't start unless it's perfect, like you just keep putting off the beginning, like I don't even want to do this unless it's start. Like these are things that are if it's going to need to be revised or need to be go over, you're going to revise it anyway. So at least let's get this
Mm-hmm.
first draft out the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's get started. So
It's so
before we,
funny when I was writing papers, I used to just like start writing. I remember I'm like, I knew like when I was in college, I just
yeah,
would just start writing, but I knew once I did the first draft, I can go back and then
yeah,
like really flesh it out. But that was when perfectionism is definitely something I've never struggled with. So when I hear it has to be hard, because for me, I'll just do it. And I'm like, if it doesn't work, I'll go back to the drawing board. But that's
yeah,
not everybody's like story of how they think,
yeah.
which is hard.
That's why they
Yeah.
used to credit Jay-Z used to brag that he could record a verse in one take. He's
Dang.
called one take hove. He just go in the booth, knock out it one time,
And that's
perfect,
it.
and he can just turn around and leave the studio. So there's a lot of people who try to be one take on things. And so they try to get everything lined up. So when they do it, they don't believe in rough drafts. They believe in
Ah,
when I
one.
do
Yeah.
this first time, it needs to be perfect. So
Yeah.
kind of letting go of that concept a little bit
Yeah.
will help in that department. And then what's the actual what is the gauge you're using to say that this is not complete?
Mm,
So when you're doing something to say, well, it's not perfect, it's not right, it's not this, what are you holding this up to that you keep coming back with? This is not correct. Because you keep saying that this is not an A+ paper, but you never turned it in, so you didn't even know how it would be graded.
right.
You know what I'm saying? So where are you getting this from? That's keeping you out of position because you feel like this thing is not complete.
Mm,
So sometimes you need to get the C to get the A,
yeah.
because at least then it comes with notes of saying what is missing.
Yeah.
That's why they say the difference. There's no losses, just lessons. That there's a point where if you're already losing because you're not getting this turned in. You didn't turn it in,
Right.
not because you couldn't
Right.
do it or you didn't try it, because you're missing stuff because you're this idea of what perfect is. Well, let's
Mm-hmm.
figure out if you are or are not even off the mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that. That's
You know what I
really
mean?
good.
Let's start with that and then see where you are. but this is going to be the behavior of completion.
Yeah.
Completion in most cases, completion over perfection.
Yeah. I think we actually have a podcast about that. Completion over
Yeah,
completion.
it's
Yeah.
it's better to have something done than to
Yeah.
not turn anything in because you're worried about it being perfect.
Right. Right.
And so for
And it,
people who are, oh, good.
no, I was going to say it definitely relieves some of the anxieties once you start to reframe it in the way that you are framing it.
Yeah.
Because time is going to keep going, and you're going to be sitting with this thing or this idea that I know a lot of people tend to struggle with.
Yeah. And this idea of things being perfect, underlying value of where I get this from, for most people, they'll tell you, well, I have this issue. I just need it to be right. I just need it to be perfect. But the actual value system is I have whatever fear, guilt, or shame associated with getting something wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's not that the value isn't about us getting it 100%. The value we're placing on us getting a 99 or less.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding, okay, I need to look at where I'm thinking this is at and trying to big picture this. I'm working on this paper 3 days longer than I should. And now I didn't study for a math test. I missed these events. I don't have time to do any of these other things because I have so much fear, guilt, and shame attached around getting a 99%. Do you know what I mean? Like just looking at our values of where it is that we have, where we're placing this importance at. But that's where a lot of people, where the time management issue comes in. It's not because we didn't have enough time, it's that we're just spending so much time on this particular thing for, in some cases, not even a real 100%.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things that are not, graded that way. Sometimes some things are pass or fail. They're complete or incomplete. And sometimes we just need to do them.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I think so many people are going to kind of rethink this idea of their time management, the way they're spending it, the way they're framing it. Like I said earlier, we're not talking about like rocket science. We're talking about things that sound simple, but in reality, it's going to take some intention on your end to make it happen. And I never want a podcast to just be like a feel good podcast or just a Sunday morning church service. I hope that, when people listen to this, and it speaks to you, that you create some intention around the change that you want to see happen. Because there's more to life, but I do feel like most of us do life wrong because we kind of stay miserable and don't realize the power that we have to create change. And so I really want people to take away, just some things that they can do to create change. And a lot of it is mindset. That's why I always say shifting the way you think, because it's not like more time comes to us. It's about the way we frame it that makes the change.
Very much so. And like we said before, too, one of the beliefs I have is that the idea of it is the issue. Like it's not the actual process.
Mm-hmm.
The getting out of bed when the alarm goes off, that's not the super difficult part. It's the feelings and the thoughts we have attached to it.
That's good. Yeah.
The finding the extra 3 or 4 hours a day, the doing this, it's there.
It's
like
there.
it's just shifting the way that we think and getting our brain around. Okay, not only do I know in my brain I need to be doing something, I have to behave my way out of my old behavior.
Yeah. It's good. I remember, before when I wasn't, now I'm really into my health and wellness, but I used to procrastinate leaving the house and like, oh, now it's like I just put it in my calendar and it's like, okay, I'm about to go do this. And, my body even like can't wait for it. It's like, are we going now? Like I could feel the energy in my body. But it took time to get there, but it was by intention. It wasn't by accident. It wasn't by thinking too much about it. It was really just like, what is it that you want, Celeste? Like, if you say you want this, then what are you doing about it? And I do want to challenge people. If you're saying that you want certain things, look at what you're doing about it. So that you can see where you can create change. And it doesn't mean that people in your life aren't doing you wrong or things, the bad things haven't happened. It's not negating that, but I can't allow that to be the barrier where I get stuck in. I have to look at where I can make an adjustment. So I'm not saying that the job is treating you right. Where can I make adjustments, right? Like, or your partner or your kid, whatever. So it's not that, it's not saying that, oh, but what about their behavior? What about their behavior? You can't ever change their behavior. You can only change like how you show up in their life. And that's something that's important that so many people need to understand.
Yeah. Control what you can control.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all internal. It's all in-house.
It's all in-house. Yep. Which is
So
why getting your mind right. We're just trying to help you get your mind right.
Yeah. How we want to react, how we want to respond to things that we want to do in that time. That's all us. It does not require external validation or approval.
No.
And like I said, if we're sitting there looking at our lives and we're like, I'm not happy in these particular areas, or I don't feel like I have time to do the things that I feel like I want to. Okay, where am I giving my attention to currently? Where am I spending my minutes at? What are my value system? What am I giving all this attention, energy, and focus towards? And if it's not what it is that I want to, then that's where I need to start making some changes.
That's good. Yeah. Thank you. This was really good. Can you let people know how they can find you if they wanted to work with you or just follow you anywhere?
Yes. So if you have questions on the taking the assessment or going through any of like the coaching stuff I do, you can go to mykeystome.com. That's mykeystome.com. And that will take you to the website, which gives a full breakdown of the assessment and all that sort of stuff. You can set up a consultation where I can answer any of your questions and then get you started if you so desire. And all social media platforms to follow me is @JMorrisCEO.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you. Always appreciate.
I enjoyed talking about the different subjects. And I know this one is something that a lot of people will find to be really helpful, because out in the session with saying it's only 24 hours in a day. That's all we're gonna get. So we can't blame time.
No. Same for everybody.